You didn't think I'd leave you in the dark about today's episode, did you? In just a minute, I'm going to illuminate you on how to make a candlestick and an oil lamp. Stay tuned. Ow! 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 Everyone I know has candlesticks. They can either be your best friend, or in the case of my last birthday, your worst enemy. Our project today is a candlestick holder made of maple. Comes in two pieces. This will involve spindle turning, and the base involves bowl turning techniques. Well, this is where it all begins. We have an 8-inch long, 2-inch square piece that will be the stem of the candlestick holder, and the base is about 5.5 inches across and also about 2 inches thick. Now obviously I cut this out on the bandsaw already, and I have the center point marked from when I drew my original circle. But I want to mount this between centers. So how do I find the exact center on this end? Well, let me show you. I'm going to use some calipers, put that point in the hole from earlier, and widen this out, and just check to see that that meets at all edges. So I'll flip this over now, and take this point and put it to the edge, and put that there, bring this here, and see if I'm about equal distance, which I am, so I'll just push in, and now I've made a point, and I found the center to this blank. I have a 4-prong drive center already mounted in the headstock, and since maple is pretty soft, I don't really need to drive it home with a mallet. I'll just use the tailstock to press it in and get good grip with the teeth. Bring our tool rest up, make sure nothing hits, and remember, since this is really oriented like a bowl, we can't rough this out with a roughing gouge. We're going to have to use our bowl gouge, and we're going to make our cuts coming from in and across because we have end grain coming towards us. Start this at a slow speed. Bring it up. That looks good. You can see it's still out around, but we're pretty close. Now we're going to take our bowl gouge and come in. We're going to close the face of it, start our cut, then open the face and come across. This is a complete opposite way if it was a spindle turning. But since we have end grain coming at us, we have to come across it to get a clean cut. Now go back to this side. You roll it, it closes it, makes it less aggressive. And then once it starts to cut, you're able to open it up a little bit more, and you can see it cuts very nicely. Now all I'm wanting to do is just flatten out the edge here. I'm not really making any shape yet. I just want to get everything in round. Now you can keep coming through like this, but right when you get near the edge, if you push on through, that will rip the grain out because there's nothing supporting this side of the wood on the cut. If I come back and come this way, all that wood I'm cutting is being supported by all the wood here. Now when you're roughing out, that's not so important, but when you're doing your finishing cuts, it's very important to know. Okay, now I need to move the tool rest, so I want to stop the lathe. And we're going to start working on the bottom. And by the way, this is the bottom of the base. And we'll get that about a little bit below center height and as close as I can get it. And this is a little bit warped, so I'm going to rotate it again, make sure it's not hitting. And now we're going to start flattening out the bottom. Now you can approach this two ways. You can take your bevel, rub it, and do a push and pull. But since this is so out around, I really would rather do a push cut for a moment and just flatten it out quickly. And now I can do a push pull and it's a little safer. Okay, we got this pretty much roughed out the way we want it. Got to stop the lathe, move the tool rest one more time. We're going to go back up to about center height with the tool rest. And we're going to start making the curve for the bottom. And I'm angling my tool rest because that will give me good support through the whole movement. And we're just going to start shaping this a little bit like a bowl. And I could approach this like a bead and just work my way slowly But I'm going to use a step method because I know the shape I want. So I'm going to just bulk remove as much wood as I need to get my shape where I want it. Now by making these steps, I removed a lot of wood very quickly. Now I can come back and just start kind of connecting the marks, connecting the dots. See how quickly you can start to shape your bowl. Now I want to round the bottom of the base here, but I'm going to use a pull cut to do that. I could come at it with a push cut, but this is a lot easier to control. We'll just feather that in. There's not going to be a foot on this. I want this just to blend right into the tabletop. This pull cut is great for leaving a very smooth surface too, and since you're working with end grain, if you carry the pull cut on around, it'll leave a nice surface that you can sand easily. End grain is so tough to sand, it's worth all the extra effort. Now I want to go back to a push cut for just a little bit, because I want to put a bead on the lip of the base here. Okay, I'm going to switch to the other side. This is still out around, so I need to cut in a little bit. And now I have solid wood, and that'll help me shape the bead. Going a little bit deeper. Now again, end grain. So I'm not going to turn a bead like I would normally on a spindle. I'm going to do a small pull cut and start shaping the bead this way. I'm going to make that a little bit thinner though. There we go. Now, watch me pull from this direction. Just touching the edge of the tool. Trying to leave as smooth a surface on there as possible. If I'm lucky, I can start sanding at 220. There we go, that's nice. Now it's time to work on the bottom. And I've moved my tool rest to the side, got a little bit below center. We're going to use our bowl gouge just to move out about a 1/4 inch of wood right now. And instead of using a tenon, like I normally do, we're going to use a recess and expand the jaws into the recess to hold it on the lathe. There we go. Going to turn the lathe off. Going to move our tool rest out a little bit, raise this up right at about center height. We're going to use a dovetail scraper to make the recess for the chuck. And this is a really neat tool because if I came in here with a parting tool, my handle would hit the tailstock. I wouldn't be able to get in there at the angle I need to make the tenon. Well, see, this has an angle to it, so it allows me to bring the handle away from the tailstock and make my cut. It's just a scraping action. Come in and just push in. Move over a little bit. You don't want to take it all out at one time. Okay. I went ahead and sanded this to 320 grit because I had good access to it. I've expanded my jaws into the recess I made, so it's holding it beautifully. And just like I trued up the bottom, I trued up the face of the blank. Now I want to drill a 3/4 inch hole about 1 inch deep, and that's going to receive the tenon from the candlestick shaft. I've got the lathe slowed down. And I'm going to go into where that tape is, which is 1 inch deep. And there we go. Now I'm using my calipers, and I'm marking out a 1 3/4 inch area here because this is going to be the shelf that's going to receive the shaft of the candlestick holder, and I don't want to turn that wood away. Now we're going to speed this up, and we're going to use our bowl gouge just like we would to turn a bowl and start removing the bulk of the wood. The only difference is I'm leaving a tenon this time, so I'm going to come back this way and then work my way in again this way. This is just like cutting a cove in spindle work with a spindle gouge. I've got to go from high to low because the end grain is supporting the cut each time. And I'm going to start shaping this a little bit. Swing my body. There we go, that's nice. I'll go back and remove some more of this wood. Now I want to start working the bead from the top that I already turned from the bottom. I'm going to roll the tool, let the bevel ride, and sweep. Now I'm going to come back with the bevel rubbing, point the tool in, and go in again. That'll keep me from getting a catch at the tip by just coming wham wham like that. By rubbing it, then turning, there we go. Now I've got most of the bulk of the wood moved away. I just want to start refining the shape and putting some detail in here. And you can do most of this with your bowl gouge. And I'm looking at my shape here to give me a reference because I want these to kind of match. They'll look nicer that way in the house. If they don't match, I'll just put them further apart. The bowl gouge is a really versatile tool. I'm going to make a little shelf here, then a pull cut, and make a bead shape. I don't know if you can hear it, but my guard dog is barking outside. Must be a kitty cat in the neighborhood. Anyway, with the pull cut, I'm just making a little bead shape. I'm going to do a push cut now, like so. Finish the bead up. And then for a nice transition, I'm going to come in with a straight line cut. You see, we did this all with a bowl gouge. No scrapers, no spindle gouge. Pretty neat. Just a little bit of sanding there. And we're going to be on to the spine of the candlestick holder. Hold it down out there, buddy. We've sanded to 320 grit. Gonna loosen that out of the jaws. And I have a little piece of wood, which I've cut a tenon onto, that is just the size of the hole in our candlestick base. And that fits on there really nice and tight. I bring the tool rest up just for a moment for some extra support. And we're going to take our bowl gouge and clean up the bottom. Bring our tool rest up. Start the lathe. We'll start with our bowl gouge and kind of clean this shape up in here. Move a little bit of the wood, not all of it. Now, grab our parting tool, make a little design work here. There we go. Gonna make a couple little shells here. And that gives us a nice transition into what I just did with the bowl gouge. Now I need to stop the lathe and remove the tailstock support. Bring the tool rest up really nice and close, because if this wants to pop off while we're turning, the tool rest will keep it from going too far away. Now we'll just take very light cuts with the bowl gouge and clean this up. And once I'm done removing this excess wood, we'll sand to 320 grit and we'll be ready to move on to the spindle work. Well, I've gone ahead and rounded out the stem for the candlestick holder, and I've drilled a 3/4 inch hole in the end of the blank. And we need to do a little bit more modification to the hole. Candlesticks come in two basic sizes, 3/4 inches and 7/8 of an inch. I made a mark for 7/8 of an inch. Also, it's going to receive this decorative brass ring, which will really make things look nice. We need to taper our hole out so we can use both types of candles in our candlestick holder. And we'll just use this little flat round nose scraper and taper the hole. Okay, I've put a cone on my live center, and that's going to fit nicely in the hole and that'll help keep out any vibration while we're turning. Well, I want to mark out the rough shape of my candlestick stem. That looks good. Now it's going to be a swale, and that's the end where the tenon starts to show up right there. And it's just going to be simple spindle turning from here out. And I'm just going to start working the wood down. And I'm going to look back at this and reference it every now and then, because I don't want to make an exact copy of it. I want it to look handmade, but I want it to look similar. Just get a nice little bead on this end. Do a little pull cut just to clean that up a hair. Now I want to make a cove here, so I'm going to remove a little bit of wood quickly. And I want to transition from the lip, so I'll let the tool help me make that transition. That's about right. I'll just do a little pull cut. There, got a nice little shell. And this is where we start making a little cove here. And you don't have to make this the way I'm making it. You know, use your imagination. I actually did a little research on the internet, and I came across some photos of some antique candlesticks, and that's what I based this one off of. I didn't want this to look too modern. I wanted it to look kind of classic. Sweep my body, make that cove. Okay. Now the ball shape is going to be a little bit wider than the detail on my cove, but I got to remove a little bit of wood to get down to that diameter. I'll just start shaping the ball now. And I'm going to make a transition here. And I want this to be thinner than the ball, so I'll bring that down a little bit more. There we go. Almost there. There we go. So I'll start working the ball in. Just making a nice bead, rolling the tool, lifting the handle. Rolling the tool, lifting the handle. Come back, clean up the transition. Now I'm going to start removing some wood back here to finish the other side of the ball. Making a ball is a little bit challenging because you want to make it very symmetrical. So it doesn't matter if you worry away at it a little bit. Kind of sneak into there, get it the way you want it. That's looking pretty good. Looking back here, my next thing I need to do is start turning this long curve. Well, this spindle gouge has a fingernail grind on it. I want to switch to a conventional grind spindle gouge because it's beautiful for making long, flowing shapes. It's not as aggressive as the fingernail grind. Now, with most of that wood removed, we can start refining our shape. And see how the wider point of the conventional grind allows the tool to ride along the surface and make a very gentle curve. Blend that in here, come back, swing down. You can start over, that's no sin. If your curve is made in increments, no one's going to know. There we go. That looks nice. Now we need to start working on the bottom. Now I've got this shape pretty much the way I want it. Right here is the mark for the bottom of the spindle. I want to take this down a bit with my parting tool. Come back with my spindle gouge and follow this shape in. That looks good. Now I've got my calipers set to 3/4 of an inch, which is the size of the hole in the base. So we're going to cut a tenon here to fit that. And once we get this tenon cut to size, a little bit of sanding, and then we'll nibble off the excess wood on the bandsaw. It's sanded up very nicely. All you have left to do is put these together with a little bit of good wood glue and maybe a couple hand rub coats of polyurethane, insert a decorative brass candle ring, and you're done. Now, we got a little bit of time left, so we're going to make an oil lamp. Our first step, let's go to the drill press. I've turned another jam fit tenon that'll go in the hole we just drilled, and it's a nice tight fit, and I'm going to need that. Get that up there really nice and tight, bring the tailstock up, lock it down, and advance it in, and it's going to hold everything securely while we start using our bowl gouge to round out the blank. This blank is oriented grain-wise just like the base we did on the candlestick holder. So we got to come in from the side to make supported cuts. Whoa! What was that? Uh-oh. Had a piece of wood fly off, and ooh, there's a big crack in here I hadn't noticed before. Runs this way, runs all the way to there. That's where a piece came from. Well, throw the piece of wood away? This stuff's expensive. This is what you call a design modification. Looks like I'm going to have to turn quite a bit of wood off, and then we'll figure out what shape we're going to wind up with. Well, you can see our design modification really made us remove a lot of wood. It's also making me rethink my design here. I was going to do a recess and hold it like we did the other bottom, but instead I'm going to have to put in a dovetail tenon and hold this in my chuck. And I just want to make a tiny dovetail, try to save as much wood as possible. Now that little tenon works nicely in the chuck. I don't have as much room here to make any decorations because of our design modification, so I'm just going to take a small round nose scraper and try to put in a little bit of detail. Cocobolo is a great wood for scraping. Takes a very nice finish from it. I just want to relieve that top edge a bit. We're going to just freeform this, come up with an idea, and I'm going from high to low. That way I have a supported cut. The oils in Cocobolo are what make it easy to scrape. And it's about as much as I can do with the scraper. I want to go back to my bowl gouge and just refine the top a little bit. I don't want the top to be wider than the bottom. That'd look a little heavy. And second thought, I might actually take advantage of the top being a little bit wider. It'll look a little more dramatic. It'll pop off the table. So I'll just scoop with the bowl gouge here. That looks good. Let's come back over here. Now this cut is against the end grain, but my goal is to be able to come back this way now and make a clean cut. And I'll finish that bottom up in just a second. We'll do a pull cut here. Smooth this out. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we sanded to 600, and I want to show you an old wood turner's trick here. Rather than put a finish on here, I'm going to take some of the shavings and press them into the wood while it's spinning. And we're going to burnish the surface. It's a little bit hot, so be careful. But look at the shine that puts on here. Now I can apply a protective wax coat later, but this really brings out the beauty of that Cocobolo. Now, just like the candlestick bottom we made earlier, I've reversed the piece again on the jam fit tenon, and I'm going to start shaping the bottom. And once I got the shape the way I want it, sand it to 600 grit, and then burnish it with some shavings. So that's the story on how to make an oil lamp and a beautiful candlestick holder. I hope you found today's show enlightening. So if there's storms in the area and your electricity goes out, or if you forget to pay your electric bill, you're prepared. So until the next time on the Woodturning Workshop, keep turning. Man, where's the light switch?
Those aren't pillows.